Hey everybody, I'm getting a message that my stream status is bad, so let me know if you can see this, if you can hear me. I'm not seeing anything in the live chat. I know there's a delay, but alright, awesome, now I got it. It's kind of a long delay on this. Um, alright, so yeah, I had some issues like 2 minutes before I was going to start the stream where everything was freezing up, so I shut down my Webpack server and my Gulp server that I was running, and I closed some windows. So hopefully everything will run all right. Um, I have up on the screen just kind of the same reminder that I've had for a while. I'm not really going to go over it. Streams are going to be sporadic the next couple of days, and then next week it'll get back on schedule. The only thing I do want to know is I'm going to be at SyntaxCon. I do have permission to do video there, either live stream or pre-recorded video. So if there's something in particular that you all would like to see, please let me know. You can let me know in the live chat or in the comments or on Twitter, however you prefer. Okay, I was just checking it. Yeah, it looks like the stream is good. Nobody's saying there's anything wrong with the stream. So, just a recap from yesterday. We're yesterday, if you were watching, it was I got stuck on one step of setting up the server, a really easy and early step, and that's setting up an alternate user account so we don't have to use root all the time. And the problem was when I went to copy and paste the SSH key, I didn't get the entire key. So I was trying to go quickly, didn't get the very end of the key, and when I pasted it in, obviously it didn't work. So that was the problem. So it's kind of nice that it wasn't, something more serious, but that happens. So I should have thought. I know later on some people in the live stream suggested that it might be that issue, and as soon as I saw the suggestion, I kind of knew that that was probably it. So that was the problem. So now I do have a user, and it does work. So we're gonna log in today as this user. I set the length for this live stream for an hour instead of a half an hour because I'd like to get through as much of the server setup as I can, hopefully all of it. That's a little bit ambitious, so we'll see. We have to install Nginx and Node. We'll probably set up, I don't know, maybe we'll set up the SSL. I might wait since the URL that we're going to use is just a test URL. It might not be the real one, so we'll see. And then hopefully we can get a chance to configure our server, our Node server we're going to use Express, and see if we can actually get this app running, this site running on the server. So I don't know if I can get it done. I might go longer than an hour. I have a meeting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, so I can't go any longer than that. And it is a meeting about this website. So I've been working like crazy to try to get a lot of the changes requested at the last meeting done. They were basically just minor user interface changes, just some content changes and things. So nothing big. I got most of them finished. I do this show to kind of show you what things are like for me. So I'm not usually one to complain that much. I don't like it, but just to let you know how things are going and be completely honest, I'm starting to get a little bit burnout because I've been working a lot of hours. So just to give you an idea, just to show you, uh, I'm going to throw up my tracking of my hours. I know this is probably small, but you just see the colors. So this is my timesheet. So in a normal day, I'm contracted to work 7 hours. So anything green is over 7. So you can see the additional hours are all here. So I'm like at least a week of overtime now just for this month, and we're only halfway through the month. I don't so this is like just a lot of work for me recently. And the frustrating thing was, yesterday I put in like 11 and a half hours, but I think at least 6 hours of that was spent in meetings. So I don't know. That's just a crazy amount of meetings for me. That's above average, but it's frustrating when we get a tight deadline, and that happens. So it might not be like this for all front end developers, but sometimes it just happens. You got to put in a lot of hours because you have a deadline, and there's interruptions. So I ended up going home and doing some work at home. The tough thing was I was supposed to take my son to his karate lesson, and I couldn't. I had to text my wife from a meeting to tell her I wouldn't make it. So that's tough. I'm not going to get to see my kids for a couple of days this week because I'll be at a conference. So I really wanted to be able to spend more time with them. But instead, I ended up going home and doing more work, and then putting him to sleep and staying up and doing more work. So now I'm tired, and I'm running on caffeine. So with that said, I'm still going to try to do my best, get this done on time, and be happy at my meeting. But that's just how it goes. It's not always like this, but occasionally you get a project with a tight deadline, and this is just how it is. So sorry for the complaints, for the little whining session, but I just want to let you guys know how it is, without sugarcoating it. So hopefully next week we launch and things will slow down enough for me to get back to a normal schedule. And also, when you're working this fast, you don't get the time to try out new things and learn new things, which I like to do on projects. Hey, everybody. Everybody's saying hi in the live stream. Which I always like to try new things, but when you have a tight deadline, you just have to fall back on what you know will work and what you've done in the past. So, you don't really get to develop as much. At least that's been my experience. So hopefully I get a project with a more reasonable deadline next and can try out some new cool stuff. Alright, so enough about that. Let's get to it. If you want to follow along, and I'll say this right off the bat, I'm going to ignore the live stream a little bit, but at the end I'll try to catch up. But I think the only way we're going to get through most of this is if I don't take very many breaks to answer questions in the live stream. If I do miss your question, and you have to go and you can't stick around for the whole live stream, I'll try to answer it at the end, or you can put it in the comments, and I'll send an answer to you when I get a chance to see it later on. So in the description, I've linked to 2 tutorials on DigitalOcean. The first one we did yesterday, and that was how to set up Ubuntu on a DigitalOcean droplet. The second one is what we're going to start with today, and that's how to install Nginx. Somebody was here yesterday and asked what was the issue. It was a copy and paste error. So it's kind of embarrassing, but I was just trying to go too fast and didn't double check that I copied everything. The problem was actually, normally I would open my SSHQ on my machine. I would open it in Atom, and then I would see the whole thing. It'd be easier to copy and paste, but I didn't actually want my key to show up on the screen. So if I would have opened it in Atom and just auto-opened it, it probably would have opened right on the screen that I was on, since I had Atom open on that screen. So instead I thought, well, I'll just use Nano to open it. Well, evidently it's a little bit more difficult to copy and paste in Nano. Maybe it's just me because I don't do it a lot, but that's why I did it. So I thought I got it all when I was trying to copy it from Nano, but I didn't. That happens, I guess. Alright, so we're on step 1 of that Nginx tutorial. I think it's the second one I linked in the description. Oh no, the links are broken? Alright, let me throw you a link right now in the live chat. See if this one works. Thanks for the heads up about the broken links. I will try to fix that after this video so people watching later can get the right links. Alright, so you don't really need to follow along if you don't want to with the instructions, but they might provide a little bit more explanation. I'm going to make this a lot bigger so we can see. That should be big enough. Let me know if it's not. I can make it bigger. First things first, we're going to log in. There we go. See, it worked. Yay. And that's what we spent so much time on. I mean, it was at least 10 minutes, right, that we spent trying to figure that out and couldn't figure it out. So it works now. Alright, so step 1, remember we're going to use sudo now because we need to have root privileges to be able to run a lot of these commands. So that's why we use sudo in front of almost everything we use it for. And then we're going to say apt-get update. So this is just going to update this. This is like the package manager for Ubuntu, the apt-get. We're going to update the package manager. When you're using sudo, usually the first time you use it, you type your password in, and then if you use it very quickly after that, they don't make you type your passwords. You won't have to type it all the time. Alright, so we're up to date, and now we're going to run sudo apt-get install nginx. Alright, and let's see. It's just warning me about how much disk space I'll have left after I install this. So I'm going to go yes. Everything we're installing today should fit on a $5 a month DigitalOcean droplet. At least it did the last time I did that, which wasn't too long ago, maybe a few months ago. Alright. Step 2, we need to adjust the firewall. If you remember yesterday, we had a firewall and we allowed OpenSSH. Well, now we have Nginx, and we need to allow Nginx to work with the firewall because Nginx is going to need to communicate with the outside world, with people requesting to check out this site. So let's just list and see what we have. Okay, so all these right now are a possibility that we can open up. We're going to, at least right now, we're going to enable HTTP since we don't have an SSL set up. Okay, so that's our command, really simple and straightforward, UFW allow, and then we type the name. In single quotes, we type the name of the application we want to allow. Alright, let's just check this. Let's check the status to see. Okay, and we have it on the list as being allowed. Now we're going to actually start the web server. So the command we're going to use This is step 3 on the documentation if you're reading it. Okay. This just lets us know that it's started. So we can see it's active running. Okay, it's been running for about 2 minutes. And we're actually we're gonna go to the page just to make sure that it's working. And in the instructions it says go to the IP address, but I've already pointed this subdomain to our IP address. So if all you do, if you've never pointed a subdomain before, you go into wherever you have your domain hosted at, whatever your registrar is, or if you've changed your name servers, wherever those name servers are pointed to, you go in, there should be a place where it shows you all the different subdomains that are associated with your domain, where the MX records are that handle the email for that domain, and you can just add another one, type the name you want for the subdomain, in this case it's test, and then you want to select what's called an A record. You put your IP address in that A record, save it, and then your subdomain will point to where you want to go. When you're messing with that stuff, just a word of advice, take screenshots or something to remember everything, all the configuration, because if you mess it up and you don't remember what it was supposed to be, it could really mess up your site. People won't be able to get to your site. It could possibly make it so that email doesn't work on that domain. So you don't want that to happen, especially if you're working on a big site, a client site, a site that has maybe a lot of subdomains. You want to be careful about that. So make sure you only edit what you need to edit, and you have a backup so you can restore it if you need to. All right, so that's working. So we'll move that off. And I just glanced. Yeah, I did say yesterday that we would disable the root user. So yeah, we didn't do that, did we? Okay. For some reason, I thought that was part of those instructions that we were following along. Maybe it was in a different spot. So I'm not going to try to find it right now in the middle of the video. If we have time later on, I'll try to do it, or at some point I'll try to find it or explain it. But yeah, I really do want to disable the root user, and I did forget to do that yesterday. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm actually just going to type that in the search bar and leave it there so that I see it when we're done. Okay. Let me get back to my tutorial. Okay, so we're going to skip a little bit in the tutorial since we don't really need this. Let's see. Okay, we can go to step 4. Step 4 is just going to show us how to stop and start Nginx, how to restart it. We're not going to go through these because we haven't changed anything yet. This just shows you the commands. In case you're not following along, we run sudo systemctl all together, start Nginx. We can do the same thing, but just instead say restart Nginx to just stop and start immediately when one command. We can reload Nginx, which can be used if you change the config but you don't want to actually stop and start it and mess up your connections. You can just reload and then the changes will be enabled. Nginx will restart. By default, it'll start if you reboot your server. You can disable this. and the command is just disable Nginx. These are all assuming we're saying sudo systemctl first, then disable Nginx, and then to re-enable it, you just do enable Nginx. So those are all really straightforward. Step 5, if you're following along, just goes over some of the directories that are important for Nginx, and that's it for now for this part of it. We are going to do you guys, well, let me ask you, would you like to see how to set up an SSL? Because we can do that step now, or we can just skip it and try to do it later. I'm going to wait a second just for the delay to see if I get any response here. I'll go ahead and bring up that tutorial just in case we do want to do that. Okay, we've got a yes. I'm going to copy and paste the link to the next tutorial in the live chat, and then I will add it into the description as well after the video, after the live stream ends. So if you want to follow along, we're using just the basic instructions on DigitalOcean for how to secure Nginx with LetsEncrypt on Ubuntu. And the first thing we need to do is install certbot. So I'm just going to copy and paste this because it's a long one. Okay, so this is going to install certbot for us. All right, we need to confirm by hitting enter. Great. Okay, we're going to update our package list. Great. I'm sorry, I said the first command would install it. This is prerequisite command, so obviously the apt-get install command is what really installs it. I am going really quickly. You could read more about what's happening. Well, right now it's actually installing it, but you can read more about it in the instructions on DigitalOcean that I just linked. Okay. We're going to be we're on step 2 now, and we're going down to the WebRoot plugin. And so the WebRoot plugin, if you're not following along, I'll just summarize a little bit what it's saying. It needs to check a file in a directory that's going to be .wellknown. That's going to be the name of the directory. So we need to allow access to that directory. So we're going to edit our Nginx config to allow access to that directory. So let's go, and I'm going to show you, in the instructions it says use nano to do this, but I have an easier way. So let me bring this up here. If you've never seen this before, I know the font's really small. I'm not sure how to make the font bigger on this right away. So sorry about it being small. This is FileZilla. It's just a client that normally you can use to like FTP into a server. In this case, I've set it up with with SFTP, so it actually uses the same SSH key that we're using to SSH in on the terminal. I like this better because I can open the file in my code editor, which is Atom, on my local machine, and it's so much easier for me to edit this than if I try to edit it with Nano. So that's where I'm going to differ a little bit from these instructions. It's entirely up to you. Some people are really good with terminal editors, especially some people are just like really, really good with Vim and can go really fast. I am not one of those people. So we're going to go to the directory that it says we need the actually, let's see if this worked. Now I remember what happened. Last time I did this, Alright, the last time I did this, I remember, I think I had an issue with this because my user did not have access to these files. So normally you'd have to run this in sudo. So the way around this is actually, I guess it's actually good at this point that we didn't disable the root user. I don't recommend doing this or leaving this option open, but for now this will speed things up for us. I'm going to actually make the user root, and now I'm going to try to avoid previous connection. Now I'm going to try to go in with this. Okay. There is a way that I could have just let my user edit those files and logged in like that, but I don't want to have to do that because it'll just take more time right now, but that's probably the better way if you had more time. But for now we do this, then we'll switch it back to using my user, and then at some point we can just totally disable the root user. But this should speed things up for now. If anybody has more experience with this and this is like really crazy, let me know. If there's some reason why I really should not do this, I would like to know. Alright, so we need to get it going to Nginx. Here it is. And sites available. And default. So I'm going to click view/edit. And there we go. So now it's open this file in Atom. And it's so much easier to edit like this. Okay, so now we're going to continue on. We're going to add this SSL to the server block. So this is all, when you see in your Nginx config, when you see this hash sign, that's basically like a comment tag. So these are all commented out. There's a lot of stuff that's, just examples of what you could use. So we want to add this inside our server block. So this is our server block. So server, and then we have this open bracket, and it closes. Where's it closing at? All the way down here? Okay. So we're closing all the way down here. So a lot of this stuff is commented out at this point. But we're going to just add this location under here. It should be good right there. We'll certainly find out soon if it's not, but I'm pretty sure that'll work. I just save that. So I just hit Control S or Command S, and we're going to hit yes. And now this is saved on the server. If I had left it to where the user we were using for this was Jesse instead of root, when I would have tried to save it, it would not have let me save that because I wouldn't have had write access to that file. Okay. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if I'm losing any of you, and I can always try to explain a little bit more or slow down a bit. Okay, we've gotten through the first half hour, and we're not too bad on time. We'll see if we get through it all. And now let's go back to our terminal, and we're going to do sudo nginx t. This is going to check if we have syntax errors in our config file. And everything's okay. Awesome. Since we don't have any errors, I'm going to restart nginx. So I'm not going to type this all out, but you can see it's systemctl restart nginx, and we've obviously used sudo. Okay, so everything's restarted, and they give us the next step is a really long command where it wants to know the path for our web root and the name of our domain. So what I do, I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to come over to Atom. I'm going to copy it in here and edit it here, since it's easier to do it here than on the command line. I can take advantage of the slight benefit of multiple cursors. So we have test.catechetics.com. It doesn't matter how many times I try to spell that word. Catechetics is always hard to spell. C-A-T-E-C-H-E-T-S. Okay, I think I did it right. And I think this is the default path for Nginx, so I'm assuming that this will work because we didn't change our path. Okay, so now I'm going to copy that, paste it. Okay, enter email address. Okay, so now this LetsEncrypt is going to ask some questions to set up the SSL. So okay, so that's my work email, and I'm just going to agree and share email address. Yeah, sure, they can send me stuff. And you see we're getting a new certificate. Uh-oh. Oh, shoot. I forgot to put www for my... I wasn't thinking. So if you want to do a subdomain and you want it to be reachable with or without the www, we actually have to make 2 records. And I don't know why I forgot to do that, because I've done it a lot, but for some reason I forgot. So actually, I don't really care about that right now. So what we're going to do is, let's just go back here and let's take out the www. Since this is a test, I'm not worried about it. So we are going to have to go through this again. It'll just be, what was it, like 15 seconds last time? Congratulations, it worked. See, I was going to go in and change that record for the subdomain, I would just put www.test, and then I would point the A record to the same place. We will do that when we switch it over. The main domain for this site is just going to be catechetics.com. We'll do that then, but for now, since it's just a test, it's not really worth the effort. All right, so we have our certificate. And it's that easy to get an SSL, so there's no excuse to not have an SSL. It was free, and it takes 5 minutes. Oh, somebody did comment, if you're using IIS, it is a bit different. So yeah, Windows is GUI based. So yeah, it is different, totally different instructions for that. And I don't work with it. We have other people here that work with the Windows servers, and so I've never had to. I don't need to know how to do that. Okay, let's go to the next step. It says we can check if the files are there. I'm not going to check because I'm pretty sure the default locations always work. So I'm just going to skip that for now. But if you wanted to, there's a command you can use to check to make sure that your keys for your SSL are there. We want to generate now a strong Diffie-Hellman group. Okay, so I am going to do this. It does take a few minutes, but it looks really cool in your terminal when it happens. So let's do this. So this is the command that we're going to use. It's super long, so once again we copy and paste. So this is what I say. It looks kind of cool. I like this. I like this thing. I once was doing this at home, and we had somebody visiting, and they saw my screen and like asked me if I was some sort of hacker or something because they thought it looked really crazy, which I'm not, but it does look really cool. Okay, so while we're waiting on that, I'll check a little bit in the live chat. Someone says they're a PC user, they're not familiar with the Linux bash. Yeah, unfortunately, things are going to be slightly different if you're doing this on a PC. Some of the commands are the same. And one thing to remember too, I am now logged into a Linux server. So I'm no longer on my local machine. So even if you're on a PC, if you SSH into the Linux server, you're using Linux commands. So unless you're using a Windows server, these are going to be the commands you're using, and it doesn't matter how you access that server. You can access it through the browser, through DigitalOcean's admin panel. You could you could access through the browser on Chrome OS. You could be on a Mac, Windows, or Linux. But no matter what, you're still executing these commands on a Linux server. So even if you are on a PC, it is good to know these Linux commands. Because odds are at some point, unless you're going to be doing like strictly, Microsoft-based like .NET development, then at some point you're probably going to do some work on a Linux server. Yes, you see, this does take a while. It should be done soon. It's been a minute or two already. I'll just skip ahead a little bit on the instructions. On step 3, we're going to configure SSL on the web server. So if you remember, at first, talking about the firewall, which we'll switch later on, but in the firewall, we did not allow Nginx to serve HTTPS, and then in the Nginx config, we only had things going through port 80, which is the normal port for regular HTTP traffic, but we need to switch it up and allow SSL traffic to go through. I think the port is 433. I think that's the default port that we'll end up using. 443, sorry. 443. So we will need to go to our configuration files again as soon as this is done. I could probably log in on a separate tab if this starts taking too long and try to get some of the other stuff done. And Alberto in the live chat just suggested if you want to practice with a Linux server, use VirtualBox and install Ubuntu on it. Yeah, that's good advice if you don't want to actually pay for a Linux server. Or you can use, I mean, it doesn't have to be Ubuntu. You can use a different version of Linux if you want. You could probably do it in Docker as well. You could use a Docker container with whatever version of Linux you want. I'm sure there's some other ways that I'm forgetting. If you use something like Cloud9, so it's c9.io, they start you off with it's a cloud development environment that you can access through your browser, and it was free. I think it's still free. They give you a terminal right there in your browser, and you could practice those commands in there as well. That's probably the most user friendly of all the options that I mentioned and that I'm seeing here in the live chat. I would try. Cloud9 isn't the only cloud development environment. There are a few others as well. So try that out too, because then you don't have to know anything about setting up your own server. It's already set up for you, and you can just practice the commands. Wow. Sorry, guys. This is taking longer than I remember it taking. Yay, alright, it worked. Okay, somebody mentioned in the live chat, Cloud9 is free, but you have to add your credit card info. So, you know what, I do remember that now. When I signed up for it, you didn't, and then they changed it, and now you do have to add a credit card. So you can still use it for free, and they won't charge your card, but you need to have a credit card for that. So, yeah, a little bit of a barrier to entry there. Uh, I'm trying to think, did it get acquired? The change came, I think, maybe right after C9 got bought out. It was a while ago, though, so I can't remember exactly what happened. Okay, so now let's go to step 3, and we need to configure Nginx to use SSL. We need to create a config. Set Nginx directory. All right, so it's saying that we want to use nano to open this and edit and create the file, but like I said, I don't want to use nano, so this is going to differ. Sudo, and instead of nano, I'm just going to say touch, and then I'm going to copy some of this in. So if you're not familiar with the command touch, that just creates a file. I'm assuming that this will work on Ubuntu. I know it works on the Mac, and we need to change it to our domain. Okay, and then now we can bring up our FileZilla window, and we're close. We're already in the Nginx directory here, so now we just need to go to snippets, and here we go. There's the file we just created. File size 0 because we don't have anything in it yet. But now we can view and edit it. So I'm going to copy and paste. Copy and paste our SSL stuff. We need to change example.com to our domain, which is catechetics. I love that it auto-completed that for me. I don't have to try to spell that out every time. So we're going to save that, and we'll hit yes. Okay, and I don't think we'll need this file anymore, so we can go ahead and close it out. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make another snippet. And when you could do this all in one config file. If you break things out into snippets, it can make your file a little bit more clean. So if you've done this before and this is not exactly how you do it, you don't have to do it this way. And in fact, I've seen different tutorials on DigitalOcean that do it, either way. So I think it just depends on what you prefer and how long your config file is going to be, whether or not you want to break it out. I don't know if there's another advantage to it or not. You can let me know in the live chat or the comments if you know. Okay. All right, about quarter after. Okay, I could probably do this for maybe another half an hour. I want to leave a little bit of time to prepare for the meeting that I have at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So let's keep working. We're going to make another file. We need to make another snippet here. And I've just copied the path. And now let's check it out. Let me refresh this. And you can see it's appeared here. Let's edit. Okay, and they give us some boilerplate security config. I may go in and edit this at some point, but this will work for now. And I'm not going to go through all this right now, but these are just a lot of ways you can configure things. And they give you a link in the directions where you can go to read more on what these things do. So yeah, so like I said, these will probably get adjusted at some point, but for now this will work. So I've just saved that. Say yes, and now that'll be saved. Now we need to adjust our Nginx config. So let's go back. Let's see if I still have it. Do I still have it open? There we go. I still have it open. So our sites available. Substitute its name button. So it's asking us to make a backup of our current. So that's probably a good idea. Let's make a backup. So let's run this command. I'm just going to copy this command because it's long. I'll tell you what it does though. This is just copying. This is CP. It's going to copy this file, which is default, and it's going to make another file exactly like it. That's default.bak. That's our backup. So now we can mess with our default without fear that we're going to break everything, beyond repair. So now we're going to open up that default, which we already had open over here. So see, this is the default file, so we don't need to open it again because we never closed it. And inside the server block, we want to find that server listen 80, and we had this SSL config that was already here. So we're going to modify this, and we're going to allow, basically we're going to shut down traffic on port 80, like unencrypted traffic, and make everything go through SSL. So I'm going to copy and paste some of this, and then we are going to have to put in our own domain. So anywhere we see example.com needs to change. And oops, remember, we haven't used that www, but yeah, actually we do want to redirect all the www stuff. But we don't want, let's see. Yeah, what we don't want is www.example.com redirecting to the HTTPS version of www.example.com because we don't have an SSL for that. So either now or at some point later on, we'll have to redirect www traffic to not use that www, and that should prevent anybody from getting an error message saying, hey, there's no SSL, the site's not secure, things like that. So let's change this. Test.catechetics.com. Oh man, my Spotify just quit on me. I gotta hold on a second. I mentioned in a previous video that I always play music in the background, and it helps. I don't get distracted by voices, in my building, and also it helps me to talk louder because everybody talks louder when they have headphones on listening to music. Okay. Alright, I'm starting to slow down a little bit now, I think, for two reasons. One, I don't want to mess this up, and two, I am a little bit tired today, so sorry for the slow pace. For those of you who don't know anything about this, it's probably better that I go slower. If you're a little bit more knowledgeable, you might be getting bored, so I apologize. Okay. Let me bring over, just so that you guys can see where I'm at, I want to actually bring this over. And this are those the instructions on DigitalOcean that I linked to earlier. Yeah, that way you can actually see where I'm at and follow along. So we just did this step. And now we're on this step. We're actually going to start a completely new server block here. And let me duplicate this as well so that when I switch over, I can copy and paste more easily because I'm going to need to switch back and forth. So we need to go at the end of this server block, and we'll just make another one. I know a lot of this is already here and we could just uncomment it, but I think it'll be simpler at this point to just copy and paste what they have in the tutorial. Maybe. Maybe not. Let me see if it's close enough. Actually, let's not. Let's do this. And now we can open another block here. Remember, we don't need that closing tag because we already had one down here. We can uncomment this stuff. So that'll open up port 443 to listen there. And now we need to include our snippets. So remember, we made those two snippet files, and this is where you think these could be added in here, but to make things less cluttered, we just include this, and we do need to change that example. Now, whatever we put in these snippets is going to load as if it were right here in this document, but we don't have to to have it all in there. So it's kind of nice, makes it a little bit more clean. And let's see. All right, this should work. Because we are redirecting everything here anyway, so all this other stuff that was uncommented, it should be fine to keep it in this server block instead of this one. Actually, let's move this one down to, I'm not 100% sure that this absolutely has to go here, but we'll give it a shot. So we've saved it. I'm going to upload it. We're going to skip over this alternative configuration here because we don't want to allow both sets of traffic right now. Now we need to adjust our firewall. So I'm not going to look at the status. We already know, we've looked at it earlier in the stream. We know so far we've only done HTTP, and instead I'm going to copy and paste these. First, what we're going to do is we're going to allow full. So we're going to allow Nginx full, which would be both types of traffic, and then we're going to delete. So this is kind of an odd way to do the command. And we're not saying disallow or disable, we're saying delete allow. Okay, which is, oops, and I forgot, there we go, forgot that, a little single quote. Now we will check the status just to make sure it worked. And here we go. So we have Nginx full. All right, let's check our Nginx. If you remember, we did before, we used this command, Nginx -t, and that checks for syntax errors. All right, everything's good. So we did a good job. I was a little bit worried with my editing of that file, trying to do it quickly, that I would mess it up, but no syntax errors. Might be some logic errors, but we'll find out soon enough. Now we're going to restart it so the changes will take effect. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an SSL report, and this will let us know. So I'll do it right here. We do need to change it to the domain that we're using. So test.catechetics.com. Okay, we'll let that go and we'll come back to it in a second because it'll take a minute. We want to set up auto renew. Okay, so this is important. The biggest, at least that I know of, the biggest drawback of using free SSL from LetsEncrypt is that it expires, I think it's every 3 months. Yeah, so every 3 months it's going to expire. You have to renew it. So if you don't want to have to mark your calendar and manually renew, then you want to set it up to auto renew. So we're going to go into this cron tab. If you're not familiar with cron, I believe it's short for like chronological. So they're basically things you can do at given intervals in time. So things that will automatically happen on your server. So the way to configure this, it's a little bit weird. It looks a little bit weird, but it makes sense once you get used to it and see it. So for this, I am going to use Nano. So it actually gives you a choice to use Vim, or actually I've never used this one, but we're going to use Nano, and it even says Nano is the easiest. So we're choosing 2 for Nano. All right, and this is what it looks like. All this stuff up here, this is all just kind of instructions. It lets you know a little bit more about it, but we're going to skip down here and just edit. Actually, can we? Let's just copy so we don't mess it up. We're going to copy and paste, and Oops. What did I just do? Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay. So I'm actually going to move this so it's more closely aligned with the spot it's supposed to be in, because this just shows you the order. I don't think this space will mess it up, although we'll see when it's time to renew. Let me know if it messes it up. I can't remember if I put the space in before or not. So let me just show what it does. Oh, we can just run it straight from here. It says run the following command at 3:15 a.m. every day. You can choose any time. Actually, so this is minute, hour, right? So let's change this and go to, I don't know, 4. The reason being, everybody that's done this tutorial and just done the default is putting this in as the time to renew. So maybe it would be a little less stress on their system if we renew at a different time. I mean, I'm sure they can handle it, but just in case, we'll set it for a different time. Okay, and then the rest of it is, I mean, this renew is actually the command we want to run to renew the certificate. Quiet means it's not going to output information, and it's not going to ask questions and wait for us to input, right? Because we're not even going to be doing this. It's being done automatically, so we'll get no input if it asks. This part of it is going to reload Nginx. If it's actually renewed, we do need to reload it for the changes to take effect. You probably don't have to run this every day, so if we wanted to edit it, you could run it, you have 90 days, so every day is probably overkill, but it's not going to crush your system resources or anything to run it every day if you wanted to. So we're just going to save, and then if you're in Nano, you save by hitting Control-X to exit. That might be a little weird. It doesn't say save anywhere. So you go to exit, but it's going to ask you first, do you want to save? We're going to type Y, and then it asks us what we want to name it, and we'll just go with whatever the default is. Okay, so now we have the auto renewal set up. And let's go back and check our server setup. All right, and we got an A. Okay, not bad. I wanted an A+. I'm not going to try to figure out why I got just the A right now. Normally I can get an A+ on a Linux server, so I'll have to figure that out later on. But an A is still pretty good. And that's it. That's it for the SSL portion of it. I'm going to go now to our node setup. And let me bring this over. I'm going to copy and paste this in the live chat. This is where we're going now. And we're going to go to, we've done all these things, right? We've set up Ubuntu, we've set up our host name, we've set up Nginx, and we have our SSL. Now we need to install Node. Okay, so let's follow the instructions. I don't think I need to do this because I'm already in the directory I need to. This will just take me back to the home directory. I guess we'll do it just to be sure, but I mean, you can see obviously I'm in the home directory. See? I didn't actually move anywhere. So I'm just going to use the default. Probably if I if I had more time, maybe I would check to see like, okay, is there a newer version? I usually do check and see, is there a newer version of this? Let's see when this was done. This was like November 1st, 2016. It's not that long ago, but maybe we might want to run a newer version of Node. But this version should be fine. And let's see. We're going to run it. I'm not going to inspect this. I've done this before when I've run this. I'm not going to inspect it right now because we're running out of time. But basically this downloads the script you need to install everything as a bash script. So it's like a set of instructions that it'll run automatically. And now by running this, I'm basically saying, hey, run all those instructions in that bash file. So we can see it's doing its thing. It's getting Node. It's getting at least all the stuff that we need. The next step is actually going to, run this install Node. All right. It actually tells us down here that the next step is to run this. So we're going to install. It'll probably, I'm guessing it'll ask us at some point if we want to do this because it's going to take up some space. Oh, it didn't. That's odd. It usually does. Okay. Now we're going to install this build essential. This is necessary. Okay, it asked me that time. This is necessary for some packages to work. So we don't have to install npm separately. You can see here it says it's already come packaged with what we had run previously. Okay, and just to make sure this works, we're going to, okay, and I know I usually don't go straight into nano, but this is really simple, so we're just going to put it in there, and all this is going to do is, this is JavaScript, so this should be somewhat familiar if you're used to JavaScript. We just have a variable here, a variable HTTP. This requires HTTP. Okay, so now we're calling this HTTP. We're going to create the server, right? We're going to give it a content type, and all it's going to say is hello world. It's going to listen on 8080. That's like the default kind of port that everything always is on. And so that's all it's going to do. So a request is going to go to Nginx, but it's going to get passed along to Node. Node is actually going to process that request and then pass it back out. Okay. Well, that's the idea. Let's see if it works. Or have we not gotten? We might not have gotten that far yet, right? We may have to do some configuration for Nginx for it to work like that, but we can test it through the terminal as well. So we're going to control X and save. Yep, there we go. So we need to make that file executable. By default, it is not. So this is how we do that. Now we can run it. So now the server's running, right? So it's running on port 8080. So it says we can test this. We have to open up another window. So let's see. SSH at, and what is my, let me find my IP. That should work. There we go. And Oops, didn't copy. Okay, so curl, if you're not familiar with curl, this is going to grab, we give it a URL and it's going to grab the data from that URL. And in this case, the only thing is hello world. So it does work. Now, this is not ideal, right? Oops, yeah, I don't need that right now. This is not ideal, right? We run this manually and then it just sits here and we have to open up a whole nother tab. Well, what happens if something happens, this crashes? So we have to log back in our server manually? We don't want that. So we want it to automatically, we want to be able to start it and then keep working in the same tab and then have it automatically restart if something were to happen. And there are different ways of doing this. In this case, we're just going to follow the default instructions here and we're going to use PM2. We can actually stop this. If you want to stop a process, you hit Control-C. You hit Control-C and then that stops whatever server you're running. And that's the same way, like if you're running Webpack locally or you're running a server with Gulp, it's the same thing, Control-C. Alright, so we're going to install this. That G flag means globally. So when you use npm, if you want to install something for global use, not just in that particular folder, you put the G flag in the command. Alright, and now we can start this same thing with PM2. There we go. Alright, so we got a bunch of cool stuff here. And now it says that we have this running. The name is hello, and you can actually have a custom name. There are flags to be able to name it whatever you want, and it's online. Tells you, it even gives you some stats about it. There's also a dashboard that you can work in. So if you go to key metrics, you can have kind of this live dashboard that runs in your browser. So you don't even have to use the terminal to check up on the status of your application. Let's skip this if you did this. Alright, so we want things to run when the server starts up. This is how we set that in PM2. Why didn't I say sudo? That's kind of weird. We got the sudo there. There we go. Okay. Alright. So we're going to copy this. And let's see if we can get the one that it put out. Let me check the time. Alright. Actually, I gotta wrap this up so I can get ready for my meeting. We're actually almost to the point where this thing is going to run. We just have to finish up this, and a lot of this is not, you can see some of it's optional. That second step that I mentioned you have to do with Nginx, this part is just allowing Nginx to pass through things to the node server. See, and that's it. So really the only step you'd have to do after this is just editing your server block in Nginx to look on, to pass this through to port 8080 for localhost. And that really is it. And then at that point, instead of having it, instead of starting this hello.js file that we did, we'd get rid of that hello.js file. We could actually use git to pull our repo of this Next, this React site that we're using, and we'd run, instead of we've been running Next, we were running the dev version of Next. Let me show you. Okay. Yeah, so we've been doing yarn run dev. Okay, but actually, I'll show you in my package.json file what we want to run. If you're on the server, you could run yarn, or if you don't want to install yarn on the server, you could just leave it with npm, which is fine too. So you could run npm next build, and that'll build your application, and then start. And when you start it, now that will be running instead of the hello.js file. So when someone goes to your site, they'll see your React application. I'm probably going to do that later on today, so I won't show you that. But really, that's kind of all the steps we've just done, it's not too difficult to do. The only tricky thing is, like, you want to run this with PM2, so you want to make sure. I have never gotten yarn to work with PM2, so I always have to use npm as the command instead. So, like I said, you would run npm build and then npm start. But other than that, that's the only kind of trick that the only snag I've ever run into with that. So, this was a long video today. Don't have as many people sticking around as we usually do. I totally understand. This is kind of dry. It's not nearly as fun as the purely front-end stuff, which we'll get back to that. No more server videos. No, at least not for a while. So if you are sticking around still, thanks. I know it was long. I don't know if I could have stuck around for this entire video. I'm not sure exactly when the next time I'll be streaming is. I will try to stream the next couple of days when I can from the conference, or basically from wherever I can get good enough Wi-Fi to stream. Otherwise, I'll have to do some pre-recorded videos and then just upload them whenever I can get a good connection. Sorry I didn't get a chance to go through all the live chat today. I will save this chat, and I'll look if someone had some questions that didn't get answered. Please post them in the comments. If not, maybe I'll try to save this and maybe in a later live stream answer some of these questions. Hopefully, if you asked it, you're tuning in again or can at least watch the video later on. Oh, cool! I'm glad we got some people. Some people are still here. They're still watching. Awesome. Good. I'm glad at least some of you got something out of this. It's tough stuff, and you just got to practice it. And the thing is, if you're doing front end stuff, you won't really do this often enough to really, memorize everything. You're always going to have to go back to the instructions, and there's always going to be some parts that you just forget and mess up on. So that's how it happens. But it is something that you may have to do one day. So it's good to at least have seen it at least once. All right, so I only have a few minutes to get to my meeting now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have some videos for you soon, and I'll see you maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Have a great day.